Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Hudak. Day 3 of Saints training camp, and it was mired with an injury, and it was a player who just joined the New Orleans Saints. Trai Turner, former LSU offensive lineman, signed with the Saints on Tuesday. Here, day 3 of practice on Friday, went down with an injury. This is what Dennis Allen said after practice.
Trai Turner injured his knee in practice. We're in the process of determining exactly what that is, but that was really the only injury of note to talk about.
Well, turns out it wasn't a knee after all. Just a bit ago, Adam Schefter over at ESPN with the report. Former Pro Bowl guard, Trai Turner, who just signed this week with the Saints, tore his quadriceps. He is out for the season. So Trai Turner, just 3 days into his stint with his hometown team, is done. Let's go to Maddy Hudak for our Saints camp report. Good enough to join us here. Maddy, we appreciate you as always. How are you?
I'm good, Matt. We were just talking about health yesterday. I feel like we jinxed things.
Man, this sucks. It's always the thing, Maddy. If it's training camp, fall camp, spring football, whatever, people are like, hey, what do you want to see out of this? Well, the first thing I want is just everybody to be healthy. Like, don't lose important players in practice when you're not even in pads. But here we go. All right, what can you tell us about what happened with Turner with the injury?
Yeah, I didn't see what exactly had happened on that drill. A lot of people's vision was obscured, but he was carted off, and unfortunately, it looks like he tore his quad, and that's just concerning when, he was just signed to the team a few days ago, and in the discussion of depth being an issue on the offensive line already, the only silver lining is that Trevor Penning was back practicing today after not participating yesterday. But you just think about the amount of times that they've switched people, already as is on the offensive line from left to right guard, left to right tackle, guard and tackle. And it seems like it's a little much at times. But then this just goes to show you, just look at the Buccaneers last year during training camp, how quickly their offensive line just fell like dominoes. And then literally, turned Tom Brady into retirement by, getting the pants beat off him all year. But that's really, it's concerning when, a new signee immediately goes down. That being said, it's one of those things where he was signed for depth, that he wasn't, at least for now, a projected starter, at least in the immediate. And so it's kind of just back to square one with that line, but just goes to show you how quickly one or two bad injuries can really expose something like the trenches, especially.
Maddy, is it a situation where the Saints probably go look to try to add an interior offensive lineman here in camp, if nothing else, for a camp body to replace Turner, or are they good with the numbers they have?
I mean, I would. I can't get over the game where Ian Book played and they were fitting players for uniforms that night in the Superdome to play the game. That's really, there was COVID and all of that, but it got to a point where it was arguably negligent football when you're letting guys that have literally not taken a snap with the team because they can't field enough guys. But yeah, it's unfortunate because a lot of the guys on the Saints offensive line as is are a little injury prone. Ryan Ramczyk, doesn't usually participate in training camp, so it's hard to really tell. But, I know that he's kind of had things lingering for a while. And then Andres Pete is just kind of a crapshoot. Cesar Ruiz was out today, so, they had Calvin Throckmorton, I believe, slotting in for him. But that's just kind of, then what? Yeah. Then, we're kind of talking about guys that their names did not really pop up last year in any type of good way. James Hurst is really probably the most valuable depth piece that they have at this point.
The Maddy Hudak's with us. One thing that was planned today was a rest day for Ryan Ramczyk and Cesar Ruiz. So with the the right side of your line taking the day off, how did they divvy up those reps today?
So they had Throckmorton at right guard and then Storm Norton at right tackle.
Oh, sweet. Throckmorton and Storm on the right side. It's like a radio. That's like a radio show name, Maddy. It's Throckmorton and Storm in the morning. That's not a bad idea.
It's not, and it would not be bad if they could, learn to be kind of symbiotic with each other, because there's a strong chance that they're going to be, playing together. But that was kind of something that you saw a lot more from Sean Payton, was kind of changing guys around on the offensive line. And I think sometimes, it could get a little annoying to watch coaches try to put circles and square pegs, but it gives me hindsight on the value of having these guys kind of shuffle around because, Throckmorton's been here for a few years. These aren't necessarily new guys to the system. So any versatility that they can kind of get there, we've at least kind of been able to see it a few days. And they've really done a lot of, today was run game heavy, so the line has to work in concert there. And they've ran a lot of screen passes that have been absent from the Saints playbook for the last several seasons, somewhat inexplicably. There was a really good play where I believe it was Throckmorton and Eric McCoy downfield blocking on a screen pass for Alvin Kamara. So it's funny because with all these things kind of going wrong with the O-line, it kind of feels like, they're at least working as a unit somewhat well. And that's good to see when, even with guys taking rest days. Because, again, I think Ramchick tends to rest a lot of training camp days.
Yeah. Maddy, I know today was also a fan day, right, where fans were in attendance. Can you just kind of explain for us functionally how that alters practice, if at all, whenever the fans are there?
Well, for one, we all have to kind of be down in front because the first row of the bleachers, we're kind of blocking their view. So it's a lot of crouching and not necessarily the best vantage point. But what I will say is the fan turnout this year compared to really the last 2 seasons, but really last year, it was absolutely packed today and genuinely had a kind of fun, electric feel to it. But it's hard for me to really analyze at least the plays that they run, because a lot of them are, the ones that are going to get fans cheering because, they're sitting out there in the hot just like us. It's not really a time to do, installs on the fullback room kind of thing. So Alvin Kamara had a ton of touches today. You had to get the Jimmy Graham nostalgia in there, but it's hard to just kind of tell, is this something that's an identity of the offense or just kind of, on show for the fans that came to actually see something of value. That being said, you still have to have players out there that can put on a show. And just, we talked about this, how it's a marquee matchup with Lattimore and Michael Thomas, but just talking to Ross Jackson standing there today, you also have either Paulson Adebo or Alontae Taylor on the other side there against Chris Olave. That's just as fun of a matchup. And so for that to just be, inter-training camp competition, we asked yesterday about the skill positions of wide receiver and defensive back, and I think it really did display today that, you have to be able to make things look pretty. You have to have players that are able to kind of do that. And it's fun to watch, and it's a lot different to watch than Marquez Callaway and Deontay Harris against, a bunch of defensive backs that I have no idea who they are as camp bodies.
Real quick, I didn't prep you on this one, so I'm sorry if you're not. I wanted to ask about the specialists. I saw Zach Wood, literally an hour ago, sign an extension with the Saints. So I guess it's safe to say, Maddy, Zach Wood's going to make the team as the long snapper. Anything of note with the specialist, including, I don't know, are you keeping an eye on the place kicking competition at all?
Yeah, so they've been switching off one day, Blake Gillikin taking him, and then Headley, I believe, the scaffolder guy that's the most interesting punter in the world to me. Blake Grupe has definitely stood out, though. If nothing else, he looks like, he does not look like the size of a football player whatsoever. I think the size that he's given at 5'7", 150 online is generous, but he's making the same type of kicks as Will Lutz, and if nothing else, it serves as competition for Will Lutz to kind of better himself. I trying to remember if he missed one or two today, but I noticed that Will Lutz was practicing kind of off to the side by himself for quite a while after that, so I'm not willing to say that there is a kicking competition yet, but Blake Grupe has put on enough of a show. He was perfect in all of his 6 kicks yesterday from a decent enough range that it's good to see competition there. And, Blake Gillikin kind of had a really good freshman season and then somewhat of a sophomore slump. And not enough from Lou Headley other than the fact that he has a hang time of over 4.5 seconds at this point, which, is something that you can't ignore. But special teams battles, that was a really important thing that lost the Saints a lot of games the last couple of years, looking at when Will Lutz went down, what the kicking situation was in 2021. So it's also not a worse thing in the world to have depth at special teams, as much as people don't want to carry 2 kickers on their roster.
She is Maddy Hudak on Twitter at MaddyHudak_94. Of course, our correspondent there at Saints Camp. And then also you can get her stuff over at the Saints Wire. Maddy, we appreciate it. Thanks so much. We'll visit next week.
Sounds good.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.